Think the first home version of Splatterhouse was on a TurboGrafx 16? Think again. Its real first swing on home consoles was weirder, cuter, and way more insane. Buckle up, because this one is a cut above. Hello, Internet, and welcome to Retroneck Relics, the show where you get my 2-bit opinion on these 8 through 32-bit relics. Today, we look at the one instance where making something less adult was almost an improvement. And no, I'm not talking about taking the alcohol out of beer.
How do you get real premium beer taste in a non-alcoholic brew?
You don't. Meet Splatterhouse, Wanpaku Graffiti. Developed by Nowproduction, published by Namcot, and released exclusively for the Nintendo Famicom in 1989. Wanpaku Graffiti also marks the first time Namco would hand off development of a Splatterhouse game to an outside studio, but it would not be the last. Nowproduction would go on to develop both Splatterhouse 2 and 3 for the Sega Mega Drive. With its chibi graphics, pop culture references, and light humor throughout, it's easy to write off Wanpaku Graffiti as a scaled-back game to accommodate weaker hardware. Like how Ghostbusters on the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 compared to Ghostbusters on the PlayStation 2 and Nintendo Wii. However, as you play through the game's 7 stages, you quickly learn that this is in fact a love letter to both Splatterhouse and contemporary horror franchises of the time. Not just this one.
If the crack don't get you, then the hookers will.
The story of Splatterhouse Wanpaku Graffiti starts with a cold open of Jennifer crying at Rick's grave. Presumably he died at some point? I bet he was crushed under an avalanche of 100-yen coins jammed into Japanese Splatterhouse cabinets.
Life is like a hurricane.
With a flash of lightning, Rick is resurrected and wearing the terror masks. Before he can reunite with Jennifer, however, another lightning bolt strikes the neighboring grave, and the dreaded Pumpkin King emerges, kidnapping Jennifer. Now Rick must endure 7 stages of adorable heck to rescue his bespoke girlfriend. Fitting Wanpaku Graffiti into the Splatterhouse continuity is a lot like slotting Spaceballs into Star Wars. I mean, good luck.
What in God's holy name are you blathering about?
Clearly, this game is a parody. A chibi-styled Bakage take on the original Splatterhouse formula that takes notes straight out of the Parodius series playbook. Despite its saccharine appearance, Wanpaku Graffiti is still a pretty sophisticated game that deals with mature horror themes and imagery, albeit in a very tongue-in-cheek fashion. The difficulty level has been tampered down with the inclusion of candy, hamburgers, and vending machines that can replenish Rick's health. The health bar itself is interesting for other reasons.
But more about that later.
Presentation-wise, the colorful chibi characters and overall gameplay make this feel more like a PC Engine title than something you'd find on the Famicom or NES. Even with fewer colors, the big cartoony graphics are fluidly animated and look so much more detailed than the little squiggly sprites I often think of when I see most NES games. Just compare Wanpaku Graffiti to Jackie Chan's Action Kung Fu, Kato-chan Ken-chan, or even Bonk's Adventure, and you'll see what I mean. Now, these big beautiful sprites do experience some sprite tearing, but that's common in almost any game on the NES or Famicom. The environments are especially charming for a Famicom game, with stages that draw from pop culture influences like Friday the 13th and Evil Dead 2. These sleepy suburban neighborhoods also give me Halloween or Nightmare on Elm Street vibes.
Let's see how she handles.
The rudimentary brawler-style controls of the original Splatterhouse have been swapped out for adventure-style hack-and-slash platformer gameplay. Rick puts down his dukes and picks up a hand axe instead. Your attacks are limited to a simple slash that you can perform while running or jumping, which takes away some of the tactical elements of the original. However, the simplified attack mechanics fit the more whimsical nature of this game and allow you to kick back and relax a little bit. Rick is also unable to crouch in Wanpaku Graffiti. I guess they figured he was short enough already, and really, who can stoop that low?
Be more funny!
Unlike other Splatterhouse games that give you an entire arsenal of melee weaponry, Splatterhouse Wanpaku Graffiti is limited to your axe. However, there is a shotgun that appears sparingly and has 10 shots. These blasts are so powerful they actually knock Rick back a few feet and can splatter
He said it! He said it!
an entire screen of enemies in one shot. Nowproduction is famous for introducing new features to Splatterhouse, and Wanpaku Graffiti is no exception, incorporating an RPG-style health system that's unique to the series. You can level up your health by killing enemies, which ticks a number at the top of the screen. Hit the high number and you receive an additional health bar. This number will grow over time to keep you from becoming too OP.
How do you do, fellow kids?
What?
Falling in pits forces you to start a segment over, which means your counter will also reset to keep you from cheesing the system. Your vitality bar will also shrink to its original size if you run yourself out of continues, so you have a little incentive to beat this in one go without leveraging the game's password system. You can see lots of influence from the original Splatterhouse and Wanpaku Graffiti's bestiary. The dismembered hands are back, and they're doing more than just pulling themselves around by their fingertips or flipping a bird, opting to throw plates at our hero. Those demonic hounds also make a return, but now their heads pop off when you hit them, creating a new flying threat, just like these guys at the end of Stage 1 in the original Splatterhouse.
I believe I can fly.
There's a host of other cutesy enemy forces, such as the Pumpkin Kids, bats that look suspiciously like Garfield, Mondays, and these zombies who serve as backup dancers in one of the earliest video game references to Michael Jackson's Thriller, and the first of many of the game's boss fights. The bosses in Splatterhouse Wanpaku Graffiti are absolutely charming, and each pays tribute to various pop culture and horror movie icons, such as the Possessed Girl, inspired by The Exorcist, or The Fly, which obviously draws its inspiration from the classic remake of the Vincent Price film, The Fly, starring...
You guessed it, Frank Stallone.
But they're lying.
But my favorite boss in Splatterhouse Wanpaku Graffiti is when Rick encounters a young girl lying on a slab in a torture chamber. Suddenly, her chest bursts open, and terrifying spiders leap from the open cavity, attacking Rick in an obvious nod to the film Alien. Don't worry, guys, she walks it off. The music is kind of a mixed bag, but it's not bad. I can hear the influence from Splatterhouse in a lot of it, and it's charming. But some tracks, like Jennifer Has Been Kidnapped, are pretty repetitive and overstay their welcome if you're trying to listen to them by themselves. Now, I know what you're thinking.
But I'm a future man or woman. How can I play Splatterhouse Wanpaku Graffiti?
Well, beyond owning a Famicom or NES with a converter or EverDrive, you can play this hidden gem by picking up the Namco T Collection for your Nintendo Switch, which includes 32 more classic Namco home console releases.
What a deal.
So, what do I think? Splatterhouse Wanpaku Graffiti is a welcome departure from the core Splatterhouse series. Beneath its whimsical veneer, Wanpaku Graffiti boasts some impressively tight platforming mechanics with more responsive controls than either Splatterhouse 1 or 2. There are even multiple endings you can earn by finding hidden areas, a feature we wouldn't see again until Splatterhouse 3. It's got everything you could ever ask for in a childish, carefree parody of a grisly horror franchise that's famous for making you beat your way through legions of gruesome nightmares. That's why I'm giving Splatterhouse Wanpaku Graffiti for the Nintendo Famicom 9 garbage of cesspool out of 10.
Oh boy, mail.
Here comes a new challenger!
It's time for the Retronic Mailbag, the part of the show where you get to be heard. Here's what you had to say about my review of Chowaniki for the PC Engine Super CD-ROM. BD Tetra was quick to point out,
First, Chowaniki has an interesting charge mechanic, unlike many other shooters. In this game, holding down the shot button auto-attacks while charging an...
Wow, that's a lot of words. Too bad I'm not reading them.
For real though, there is a lot of interesting information in this thread. Go read the whole thing in the comments. Mailbag Hall of Famer K-Ron Higgs Poet scooped me with... Just remembered the same team did G-Nogu for the Genesis and Mega Drive also. That game is like the more H.R. Geiger inspired with absolute nightmare fuel looking bosses brother of this series. Well dang, you could probably guess what I'm playing next.
We're doing it.
Retro Game Squad opines.
You have me at the Darius fish in the intro. Glad you've been able to document that weird multi-tap quirk.
That's all in a day's work.
And finally, I got another piece, actually 2 pieces, of physical mail from Ray Ray is Happy. This time in the form of a comic and a coffee mug depicting the final panel. He also sent along this touching note that reads,
Hey, Nick and fam! I hope your new house is fantastic and your new lives are filled with love and adventure. Stay happy, Ray Ray!
You can follow him to see more of his great work on X with the handle at Ray Ray is Happy, or read his comic, Detractor Number 1, at rayrayishappy.com.
Hey, thanks!
As usual, I want to give a major shout out to my friends over at Retro Game Squad, who you've heard from in my review of Street Fighter the movie for the Sega Saturn, and who have also reviewed Splatterhouse, Wanpaku Graffiti. You can hear me on their show from time to time, where I always bring the weird Japanese stuff. And you can find them at RetroGameSquad.com or follow them on X with the handle at RetroGameSquad. Thank you so much for tuning in to Retronic Relics. If you like this video, please be sure to slap those like and subscribe buttons, and tune in again to find out what I dig up next. I'm Retro Nick.
And you'd be too if you were me.